Koo, for anyone who wants to get into the filmmaking business right now, what are some of the essential pieces of equipment they need to have in terms of the camera, computer, and editing system? What would you advise that people purchase?
I think that's the great thing about getting into filmmaking right now is that you need so little. You know, really you can do it yourself. You know, with a DSLR, with a laptop, with it used to be Final Cut, but now I would say Premiere, or I guess if you're learning now, maybe Final Cut 10 is great actually. But that I think filmmakers these days don't know how good they have it, and of course the generation before me was probably saying that about me. But essentially, it's so much easier now to get a passably good-looking image, with a shallow depth of field. You have a large sensor camera that it looks like a movie when you go shoot something for very little now, and that wasn't the case until a few years ago with the explosion of DSLRs. So it's a great time to be making movies with very little money, as far as getting your foot in the door and making something that resembles a movie. When I was in school, we were shooting on VHS cameras. So no matter how good you're writing, no matter how good you're directing, at the end of the day, it was going to be terrible. So it's nice to be able to go and make something with the tools that are out there for very little now, and actually have it, look and sound good.
Any advice on staying ahead of the curve? It seems like so many things are wonderful. There's so many wonderful products, and they do look like film, but then they're obsolete in 2 to 3, 4, 5 years. Is that just the nature of the beast, or are there certain things that you can purchase that will kind of keep you ahead of the curve, that won't be as obsolete in the next few years?
I just think as a filmmaker, you can't get caught up and worrying about being on the latest version of whatever's out there. We cover those things on No Film School, and it's great to check in and know what the latest, greatest tool is. But ultimately, storytelling is timeless, and it's a very rare situation that your camera or your equipment is going to be the thing that makes or breaks your film.
Someone said once that part of being a filmmaker is what do they say? Gear addiction. Mm-hmm. That you get this sort of gear acquisition addiction, and it's just part of, you just know that your bank account's going to take a hit, and it's just part of the thing. Is that something that you have to accept, being in this business or having this hobby?
Gear addiction is something that I've suffered myself. I'm a gear addict. Hello, my name is Ryan. But it's one of those things where I think it also demonstrates your commitment to your craft. And for me, ever since I was in high school, there could have been a situation where I would buy a nice fill in the blank, or are you going to go buy a car? Are you going to go do this? And for me, I was always spending money on gear because I believed in myself and I believed in the stories I wanted to tell. And the nice thing, of course, is that the gear you buy now may be obsolete, but you can still sell it. And so as you're sort of building up these tools that you have in your wheelhouse, I think that, you can view the addiction as a bad thing, but it's not bad to invest in yourself. And that's essentially what I think buying these tools represents.
In terms of research as to which brand or whatever someone needs to do for the various products they want to buy, how much do you spend? I know things are different because you're running a website dedicated to looking that up, but how much time would you say the average person should dedicate to looking up the different reviews and things like that on different products?
Are we saying how much time or how much money that you spend on these things?
Or a little bit of both, but
okay.
Yeah, how much sort of due diligence should you do in researching what brand versus Canon, Nikon, whatever?
The way I view it is I spend most of my time working on, at this point, screenwriting. A few months ago it was directing or editing, depending on what stage I'm at with various projects. But when I'm surfing the web, or if I were somebody reading No Film School, if I weren't writing and managing No Film School, if I was reading these things, I see that time as something that you're doing instead of watching football on Sunday. To me, it's not a mutually exclusive thing. It's like I'm on this website and I'm reading about these things because I care about it. And quite frankly, I think a lot of people do these things while they're at a day job they don't want to be at. So, I'm reading and researching materials not instead of working on a screenplay, but in addition to it. And I think on the money side of the equation, there are a lot of ways that you can invest in equipment that don't require you to have a lot of money yourself. You know, one is, are there loans? Is there financing you can get? I know that when I bought a Red camera, I went and applied for a credit card that had 0% interest for 21 months. So I paid it off. It was like $300 a month for the next 2 years essentially, but I didn't have the money in my account at the time when I went to buy it, and then I sub-rented it through a rental house so that it was generating income on its own. So, you know, I think some people saw an article I wrote that said I was buying a Red, and they assumed that, you know, I had a lot of money in my bank account, and why was I, as an indie filmmaker, spending money on a camera instead of the film itself, when actually that camera basically ended up costing me nothing because I put it on a card and I paid it off through sub-rentals. So I think you have to be savvy as a businessman when you're investing in this equipment. And then if you're not sub-renting it like I have, think about what kind of income it's generating for you, whether you run a production company or whether you're a DP. Can it add to your day rate? And just making those calculations, it's something that can, you know, it should be paying you, not vice versa.
Wow, that's a great point. Yeah, so using credit cards, but using it in a smart way where, you know, you could avoid the finance charge. And in terms of how much research did you do before you decided on that was the camera that you wanted? And again, it's different because, you know, you're the head of no film school, so I get that. But in terms of like someone else that maybe isn't doing that doesn't run a website, how much do you think they should devote to researching?
You know, I think it's not, as I said, it's not going to make or break your projects. I think there's no such thing as the best camera. There's only the best tool for the jobs that you do, and depending on whether you shoot documentaries, whether you shoot weddings, or whether you shoot features, you know, all of those things are going to be different. But ultimately, it's great to be a filmmaker now because the tools are so good and they work in, you know, various lighting conditions. They can shoot different frame rates. They have audio inputs. You know, the DSLRs are being hacked to do raw video. It's, you know, it's an amazing time to be a filmmaker, and I wouldn't worry about, well, I have this camera and he has that camera, therefore his movie's going to look better or worse. It's not really going to be the make or break point, I think.